Hello, welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. It is May 12th, and this is the 10th installment of our 2017 webinar series. And today I am speaking all about basically what I'm characterizing as a peaceful flying rainbow lasagna planetary revolution. And the revolution is an interior revolution. It has to do with changing and transforming the structure of our DNA and the structure of our consciousness. This is the most revolutionary thing that you can possibly do. So here in this time, so here's a question. Is the FRL an internal mind manifestation or an actual physical? It is both. So we have an inner movie screen. We have, your pineal gland and your energy center that is up here on your forehead is your capacity to imagine and project and envision things that are not actually here in the world. So if I said to each one of you, imagine or envision a purple caterpillar in your brain, then you could do that. Most, people have varying degrees of skills of their capacity to imagine, but I'm saying that is an innate human faculty, and it is part of the higher faculties, and your higher faculties are, sorry, the shadow there, this violet energy center and this indigo energy center, and the place where they come together right in the center of your brain and your skull, and where your spine fits right where your skull fits right on top of your spine. That is a magical place inside of your physical apparatus. That is where this inner movie screen exists, and that inner movie screen also projects outward into the physical realm. So I like to use this analogy in exactly the same way. We have physical vocal cords in our actual neck, and when they're functioning, they make noise, la la la. That is a non-physical projection or expression of that physical structure. Same thing with the physical, what we've got in our brain. I got to mute someone, someone's new. I'm muting you not because I don't love you, but just because there ends up being feedback that is distracting. So the inner equipment, the pineal gland and other inner equipment, that is equivalent to the vocal cords, and it actually is a physical apparatus that projects the non-physical experience. So in your DNA, with the flying rainbow lasagna, your DNA are actual physical strings. If I had a real piano, like I have an electric piano over here, my piano is making sounds that are based on the vibrating strings. So we have actual vibrating strings inside of our trillions of cells. This is what I'm trying to get across. Each one of us has this beautiful instrument. Our body is our instrument. We are very lucky and privileged to have our bodies, regardless of whatever social programming might have been put into each one of us. And that's part of the genetic degradation. Just like I use this analogy all the time, we are meant to be like wolves. That is our wild, undomesticated format. That's who we would be, what we would be like if we had not been genetically manipulated and diminished. But right now we are living more like dogs. And our dog-like structure, has these limitations, and the beings that created those limitations, they did so for purposes of their convenience, and so that they could more easily control and manipulate humanity. And it was not done consensually. None of us in our undomesticated wolven format said, oh yes, I'd really like to lose my higher faculties and not be able to consciously co-create time anymore. So this broadcast, what I'm going to do here is going to tie together a lot of the other things that I've already spoken about. And I'm going to do a little bit of recap, because this is a map. What I'm showing here with this, the information that I give in these webinars is meant to be empowering, and it is crucial information so that each one of us can be free. And when I characterize myself also, because I'm a galactic walk-in or a galactic abstraction or whatever vocabulary word is like fitting at this moment, what motivated me to have this experience and to vibrate the DNA of this particular individual body like a flying rainbow lasagna so that I could come into it was I was motivated by freedom. That I saw that there was a great injustice and lack of freedom that was being perpetrated on the person that was being, basically unmade, that was being destroyed. And I said, that's not cool. And I spontaneously vibrated on in and created this. So as I was saying in the introduction, I was on Facebook, I was characterizing this a little bit. There's basically, I'm loosely separating non-terrestrial beings into those beings who use technology and those beings who do not have to use technology. And the beings that use technology, they have to do so as a compensatory mode because they did not emit themselves from that center convergence point on a bridge of love. So my grouping of beings who I'm connected to and what I'm all about, we're all about unconditional love and freedom. And freedom is a concept that it must be freedom everywhere. If you just have freedom in 89% of the world and then in 11% of the world we have horrible slavery, that's not actual freedom. It means that if one is free, or if freedom is important to you and you see like that guy over there is totally enslaved, then you recognize that that level of enslavement is diminishing your own freedom. And the energetic explanation for this is because we are all connected through the time field. So first I'm going to show you, and especially for newcomers, this is a three-dimensional sculpture, right? And what I've got here is basically two donuts or two tori, and they're at 90-degree angles. So we have one that's going around like this, and then I have one that's going around like this. But you understand, I'm going to do a shorthand that's going to look like a cross-section of this, and I'm going to draw that we're in a matrix or a grid of many of these. So let me get to the whiteboard because I really like to talk with pictures here. And let's hope my pen cooperates. Okay, so we've got a matrix. First, this is my shorthand. Students that are in this class that are familiar, they've seen me draw these like a million times, that I draw these little cross sections. And that's what you saw in that sculpture. And we have this one that's here and this one that's here. All right, here, let me, this one like here, here. I'm drawing these super fast and super sloppy, but so that you can start to get an idea of the way that these are situated on top of one another. And that this one has a vortex that is situated on top of it like that, like that, like that. Here, I'll draw another one so that we can get an idea that this one has one that sticks up like this. It's yellow, you can barely see it, but you're getting an idea that these are all together. These, we're in a grid, and that, here, I'll choose another color. Each one of these, like that's a lifetime that I just highlighted in black. This is another lifetime that I'm highlighting in black. This is another lifetime that I'm highlighting in black. So you're starting to see, let's say this guy in red over here, let's say that person is enslaved and they cannot choose where they're going in the time field, and maybe they're hitting the membrane of death over here. Well, the truth is that affects this guy down here. That affects the energy field of this particular toroid that's supposed to be flowing around in a beautiful figure 8 pattern, but all of a sudden it can't flow in that pattern because the energy that it's supposed to have available to it isn't there because of the distortion of the time field. So I speak about this at length, the distortion of the time field via dark magic. And magic in this conversation is synonymous with Arthur C. Clarke's definition of magic, that any sophisticated form of technology would be perceived by magic by the unsophisticated beings that are using it. So that is what, in our world, what humans in the domesticated format have interpreted as magic is actually a form of technology. And the technology is a sophisticated artificial intelligence virtual reality that predates our present culture on Earth. So this is from before Earth was invaded. These beings, this is why it's totally wrong and erroneous to say, oh, Earth was quarantined because Earth has a bad fear disease, blame the victim, you're not good enough to be connected to the cosmos. No, 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 the cosmos is already infected. And when I say the cosmos, I'm referring to the time field. Every single possible iteration out there is infected. This is technology in our world, like not just on Earth, but in the entirety, affecting other star systems, and affecting other planets, and affecting many, many other species. This is the distortion of the time field. So that's like saying this is an embroidery, and it's living, and it has a metabolism, and all the threads of time are supposed to be woven together in a very specific way, in a very specific format, just like your body. Your cells of your body are intended to be fit together like puzzle pieces in a very specific format. And if we disarrange your cellular structure, we disarrange it a little bit, that's called disease. And if we disarrange it a lot, that's called death. So the time field is a living being, and it's made of threads that are, these tendrils of time. if it gets disarranged too much, it gets sick. Well, if it disarranged a little bit, it gets sick. Disarranged too much, and it dies. The structure no longer functions. It no longer holds together. So all of that, in order to characterize Aurora, why would you, as a galactic abstraction, intervene? Why would I come here? Why would I do this? Because literally, think of it from the point of view of the beings that invaded 10,000 years ago. They're like, oh, there's a juicy planet. Let's swoop on in. Let's get inside of the bodies that are there. Those are juicy bodies. Let's mine the planet for whatever resources we need. Let's control and manipulate the physical structures of these bodies so that we can be powerful in the physical world, because that's the basic motivation. The beings that emanated themselves from the source in there, but not on a bridge of love, that's called getting born into the physical world. And matter comes from the etymological root word for mother, mama. This is our womb. This is where we're here gestating, submerged in the matter of the material world, to then be born into the next level. So to the beings that came to this planet 10 or 20,000 years ago, they're like barbarian values. To this, only the strong shall survive, and to the victor go the spoils. So they're like, oh, we're the victor. We get to take the spoils. It's going to take that planet. Which is, it's like saying, if you want to have a relationship with a woman, you just club them over the head and drag them back to your cave, by their hair, and then you get to do whatever you want to them. That is not what is supposed to happen in the world in general. In fact, all of these rules were set up as energetic firewalls of consciousness in order to protect nascent planets from that type of invasion. So the basic premise is, if you need a clank metal spaceship to get off the surface of your planet and go invade other planets or steal resources from them, you shouldn't be able to get off the surface of your planet. That I spoke about this, how experts do star travel in the previous webinar, that it is a non-technological process, and it involves physicality in terms of restructuring the genetic dance. So this is how experts do star travel, and it involves utilizing the stellar network. And I'm pointing back here to a big depiction of the sun, Sol, our nearest star. This is our nearest broadcaster, like a cell phone broadcasting tower of a very extensive network of consciousness. And when humans were genetically degraded, that was cutting off humanity from those broadcasts. So basically, I've also portrayed this. It is like the ultimate Stockholm syndrome, where one falls in love with one's rapist. The planet was raped, and the rapists themselves blinded humanity and cut humanity off from connections to the real divine world. And then those invaders portrayed themselves as the masters and overlords of humanity. They created a set of myths about themselves that is like ancient Babylonian and Sumerian mythology, and eventually they created the Judeo-Christian religion, that these are all control systems that are used in order to make domesticated humans worship their owners as if they are the big god, but they are not actually the big god. So this is all backstory and everything like that. I'm trying to say, what would it look like to those beings who have created an empire? And the empire is the interstices. So for new people, I'm pointing this out to you, that's this membrane between worlds here. It's supposed to be like a transit point between worlds. It's not supposed to be a place where you live for a really long time and set up your camp and pitch a tent and live there for thousands of years, but that's what they did. They invaded our planet. Most of them died horribly, and they immediately got stuck on the interstices as the undigested emotional experiences of the body of this larger metabolic being. They're the fatty deposits. Like if you eat a bunch of food and you do not emotionally process the experience and the emotional energy contained in that food, it becomes a fatty deposit. And it doesn't just become fat like on your ass or on your stomach. It becomes fat internally in lining the arteries of your body. And these are the arteries of time. These are the arteries of the time body. And the occupiers of the interstices, these are the accumulated pains, the unresolved trauma of our cosmos. So what would it look like to those beings? They're like, we've set up an extensive civilization in the interstices, and we farm humanity, and we've done this for millennia, and we've got a end game coming up right now. What would it look like to them to have a flying rainbow lasagna show up? They hate me. They are very threatened by me and my existence and by this concept, because this is basically how you dismantle that whole entire corrupt empire. And you do it by vibrating this shape in a higher dimensional context. And when I say that, sometimes I feel like people think that's empty words, Aurora, like these are just math words that doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go through it with you so that you really see that this is the shape of you, this is your energy body, and that there are those blockages that are stuck on the interstices, and that it is putting this energy body or time body, body of pure potential, into a higher dimensional context and being able to move it up and down that gives us the capacity to rearrange things into a new format and get rid of the things you don't want. You can erase out of your genetic code the tendencies that you do not wish to be there, tendencies towards disease or decrepitude or death. Death is not a natural experience. And that's why I also have a problem with what I'm calling the death cults of, Earth's surface religions, things that teach you about the necessity of death and that it is noble and that it will free you, because that's not truthful. Death is not what we were supposed to originally experience. So go to the whiteboard here. If this is the dot, that central convergence point, that zeroth dimension and the source that we come from and the place that we all go back to, what we were supposed to do was come out here, be emanated into the world, and red is the color of the physical world. We were supposed to be emanated out into the physical world. And then if this is the time field, we were supposed to go right here, like an archer lining up for the bullseye, and go directly back to the source, and that this is an unbroken circuit, like a big giant circle that goes around and around, an unbroken circuit. But that approach, that circuit has been broken, and instead of being able to line up like an excellent archer in front of the bullseye, what everybody has to do is go through all of the rigmarole, exploring everything at the periphery. And it also swoops in from the other side at the same time, because we're in a cross section, until finally you get aligned with this part in the middle here, and then get to go up back to the beginning. Well, that's not what we were supposed to do. We were never supposed to put, where I'm highlighting in red, all of this energy into those membranes. All of those dead versions of you were never supposed to be experienced. We're never supposed to put that energy there. And so this is the distortion of what we have been forced to experience. So what we are attempting to do is to realign ourselves by self-cultivation and rearranging our inner structures. So these are what people call these are chakras. Chakras means spinning wheel of energy, and you can see exactly how these are shaped like wheels. In fact, this one right here and this one right here, they're just like tires on a car. They're rolling forward like tires on a car, but what we are rolling forward through is time. And our time body needs to be perfectly calibrated so that we have the right experiences. And up until this point, humans haven't been able to effectively choose or create their own experiences. And most people would consider that to be a superhuman quality. The idea like you could write your own script of your life. If you could write your own script of your life, would you ever write something like not having enough money or being diseased or seeing someone that you love die? And if you could write your own script of your life and the entire planet, would you ever write a script where you did something like babies are born with brain cancer, or kittens are horribly drowned, or anything like that? No, you would never do any of that. So this planetary invasion and degradation of the behavior of our genes, and also the healthy expression of the time field, it's not just a degradation of your physical body and the way your physical body acts. It's also a degradation of events, that they took the beautiful, shining, perfectly created events. Those are it's like music that was created by the great composer, and it's supposed to sound very beautiful, and those are beautiful, happy notes, and those notes were degraded and made muddy, and now they sound more like this, and they don't sound good. That's disorganized notes, and that does not make us sound very good. This is the whole point, that that distortion leads to a distortion in the emotional realm of humans also. So most humans do not walk around feeling super awesome and super happy because kittens are being drowned and babies are being born with brain cancer, and our Earth right now is horribly polluted. Let's talk about the horrible pollution on Earth also. So first of all, I'm just characterizing that those invaders from 10,000 years ago that set up shop on Earth, they look at me like I'm some kind of an invader, but I'm not, or I'm like I rectify. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So let me just drink a bit of juice here. Technology that is currently being used on Earth, there are two different types of technology being deployed on Earth right now. One of it is terrestrial technology, and I'm pointing to my light bulb right now. This light bulb runs on electrons flowing through a wire. And non-terrestrial technology runs by trapped and victimized consciousness. So that consciousness can be human, and it can also be like an animal that is sacrificed. Animal sacrifice fuels the interstices, killing things that wouldn't have died. And that's because it's like saying if you are a dove or a goat or an oxen and you would have gone up in this direction like this, but you get murdered, that means that we're sending you in this direction. So first of all, a version of you is dead, hits the membrane of death and stops moving through time. And also we can calculate the difference between your pathway in this alignment and your pathway in this alignment. That there's like a degree of difference, like 32 degrees, we have siphoned off 32 degrees worth of cosmic energy and sent your consciousness into the interstices, which this membrane between worlds, where it can then be exploited and utilized. That's the gas in these giant clank metal spaceships. That's what makes them go. So I'm not that much of a TV watcher, but I watched the Battlestar Galactica series, the new version of it, and it gives me cultural shorthand so I can say the Cylons in that show, they looked like a saucer with a metal skin, but when they shot it down and they looked inside, they're like, wait, this looks like tendons and ligaments and blood. And it was trying to portray that it is a semi-technological and semi-alive apparatus or construction. So look, the great composer, the great conductor, is very adept and created these beautiful biological structures. You know, the architecture was made in order to contain everything that it needed for life. That our bodies in the undomesticated format were created very perfectly and that they don't require any technology. So these beings that are melding some aspect of biology with technology, they are exploiting and hijacking the levels of biology in order to fuel their technology. Because the idea is their technology is a compensatory mode because they don't use love, they didn't emanate from here. What they're actually supposed to do is use entropy, which is lack of energy. But they had a political revolution in their own world thousands of years ago that made them, they're supposed to be starving themselves into entropy, into a state of total coldness and darkness and non-movement. But instead what they decided to do was become scavengers. They're like, it's like, imagine if you're supposed to be fasting on a diet, but instead of doing so, like so that you're fasting for enlightenment, you're like, someone left a hamburger over there, I'm gonna go eat it. And then if you're like, hey, you know, something that was pretty good, but instead of just like relying upon someone leaving behind a hamburger, how about I actually steal a hamburger next time? I'm kind of hungry. How about I steal 2 hamburgers? How about I steal 5 hamburgers? Hey, I just had a family. Now I have 10 children. I'm going to have to steal a lot of hamburgers in order to feed my children. That is pretty much what happened with the occupiers of the interstices. And that is the creation of human culture, what is known as human culture. The belief system and thought structure and agriculture and animal sacrifice, that this is all for feeding energy into the interstices. So now let's talk about the way that technology is being employed on Earth's surface right now. So let's say 6,000 years ago, there were not nanoparticles being sprayed as, you know, aerosols in the atmosphere. That was not going on 6,000 years ago, but that is going on right now. And the aerosolized nanoparticles are not only, it's like you don't need disclosure. I say this all the time. You do not need your government to hold your hand like this, like you're a child, like, going to hold your hand. I'm going to tell you that extraterrestrials are real. You don't need this. All you need to do is literally open your eyes. You don't even need binoculars, and look up in the sky and you can see that this is being emitted. And so now we're beginning to understand, just like in ancient Atlantis or the antediluvian sophisticated world, there was an invasion, and the invasion was into the human genome and it affected consciousness. The same thing is happening right now. We are experiencing bookends, what happened a long time ago and what is happening now. And all of this is so that we can have closure. We can have resolution. We do not have to simply keep going in the same cycles over and over. And that's what I'm here to bring this message, because a lot of people are fearful of a pole shift, that it would be a complementary mirror to the pole shift that happened 10 or 20,000 years ago, and that caused the fall, that caused the genetic degradation and the degradation of consciousness, and that was the planetary reaction to the levels of disruption and degradation in the human genome. If you don't know it yet, the whirling and twirling spinning motion of your own DNA, the dance of your DNA, is what stabilizes Earth. That our own bodies doing our dances and having our ideas and what we're doing makes our planet have its weather patterns and ways of moving the continents and ways of harmonizing what is on the planet. So in ancient Atlantis, when human freedom began to be disrupted, and that means that people couldn't think their right thoughts. We are expressions of the planet. The planet is a dreamer, like an actual person dreaming and thinking these ideas, and we're like individual neurons. And as an individual neuron, we're supposed to think the right thoughts from the great brain. And when our genetic code was degraded, it meant we couldn't think the right thoughts anymore. And so we started to think the wrong thoughts, and that made the whole planet go askew. Instead of moving up that central timeline, the entire planet went askew. And that's what's been going on for about the past 10,000 years in all of recorded human history. The flying rainbow lasagna is the solution to how we climb out of this level of difficulty. And I'm saying this is empowering to the individual, empowering to the planetary collective, and it doesn't require any technology or any money, like whatever. I got to pay my Zoom bill and keep the electric lights on in order to continue to share these broadcasts and everything like that. But I'm trying to say that one of the best things you can do for me is dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. That the more people that are doing this genetic dance and kicking out the occupiers of the interstices, this is how we have a planetary revolution. And it is expressed as a wonderful, joyous dance party. I'm just checking the time. Good, I have about another half hour left to go with this. So it is meant to be a joyous dance party. And when I'm portraying this about being joyful, thank you so much, Annette. Thank you very much for that, love. Being joyful is not like being a lobotomized idiot. That it is really, just like I was speaking before I started the recording about the question of, projecting a sense of everything is going to be okay. It's not pablum. It's like if you're really in a horrible car accident, or if you're doing something like trying to give birth to a physical baby, if you are feeling a sense of impending doom or anxiety or perturbations, it makes the whole thing more difficult. But if you are mentally telling yourself, I can get through this, this is manageable, we can do this, then you create that reality. So again, this is not the hopefulness of a lobotomized idiot, and I'm not here to feed you pablum and say, don't condescend to you, there, dear, everything's going to be great. No, I'm actually telling you in excruciating detail how horribly raped and diminished our planet and our bodies as individuals have. What we've experienced up until this point has been very traumatic, and we are all, to some degree or another, suffering from like a post-traumatic stress disorder. And we need massive planetary healing, planetary cultural healing, individual healing. And we do this from the individual to the whole. So that's the good news. You don't have to wait for everyone else in society, the sheeple, the masses, however you want to describe them. You don't have to wait for them to finally wake up and get it and start to improve the world. All you have to do is focus on your own individual experience and transforming your own genetic structure, because we're all interconnected. So your vibrating strings affect everybody else's vibrating strings. So this is also interdimensional ethics. Why am I allowed to be here? I'm allowed, so our planet was horribly invaded. I am not an invader. I am a welcome participant, and I'm allowed to be here because what I'm doing is done with unconditional love. So I'm trying to say the values system that I express and that I embody and that I come from in terms of non-terrestrial life is all about freedom. It must be done consensually. So I'm not forcing anyone to transform into the flying rainbow lasagna. This is not being imposed upon you. I like to say it's like joining the advanced jazz band, and it's an opportunity and an invitation, and you have to audition. You have to learn the chords so that you know that you're playing the right music as opposed to playing the wrong music. So part of it has to do with inner self-cultivation. It's not a sense of like whether you're good enough, like Jesus has to decide whether you are good enough to get into heaven. It's not like that. It's more like, did you do your homework? Did you learn these patterns? Did you learn this music to be able to collaborate with all of the other musicians? These patterns that I'm sharing, this is the music. Okay, so Josie's asking, how do we dance like an FRL? So this is not just an intellectual exercise. And I have the several previous recordings of the webinars that go into this extensively. So that the basic answer is check out the other videos that I've done on this, but it is not merely an intellectual exercise. So first, what I do is I tell people the musical score. This is like giving you the software program or the map. This is a map of how, oh, we can fly. I hear somebody's got some feedback.
They do.
Thank you. That, let me drink some juice too. I just got a little knocked off my path. First, you learn the musical score. So first you learn like how to read music. It's not that fun and interesting. It's kind of laborious. Then you learn how to apply your skills of reading music to the actual musical expression. So I do that in the videos where I say, first we have to learn the calibrations. And then once you learn the calibrations, just moving my chair here, then you can learn how to add an additional dimension, and that's adding an additional degree of freedom. So I want to show you what I mean by understanding the dimensions. Like this shape that I'm holding up is created by, we start off with a hoop, like a line, that's like a flat hula hoop. But if we add many flat hula hoops together, look, now I'm drawing a sphere. Look, these are many hula hoops added together, and I'm also drawing lines of latitude, so you can kind of sense that is a sphere. And then if we take that sphere and we make it go around in a circle, so I'm like swirling it around, that is when we end up with the torus shape, which is, these are actually spheres that spin around and make that torus shape. So imagine this is the globe-shaped spheres here that are spinning around. And then if we take that shape and we make it spin end over end, kind of like a salt shaker tumbling end over end, this little spot and this little spot end up making this other vortex that is shaped like that. All right, what I just gave you right there, that is information for flight school. But all of this information is meant to be empowering to you on your journey. So this is all about what are the things that you need to do in order to learn? What are the things that you need to learn in order to do the soul migration and transform into a flying rainbow lasagna? So first you learn the proportions. You can see this right over my head here. I'm pointing at this floret, aspect of the painting that I've got back here. These are the proportions. That red is the longest wavelength. Red is the longest wavelength, and orange is always 1/2, and yellow is always 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, and 1/7. This violet is always going to be 1/7 the size of the red wavelength. So this circle that is violet over here is 1.7 inches, and it relates to this big giant circle over here that is 12 inches. And here's another scratch board, another etching that shows that really well. Look at the big giant, this big giant red circle. Well, this orange circle is half the size, and this yellow circle is 1/3 of the size, and the green circle is 1/4 of the size, 1/5, 1/6, and 1/7 of the size. And those are standardized proportions. I didn't invent them. This is part of the musical score of the cosmos. So now you just learned the proportion, and these are the proportions of your own body. And what this matters is because we come from this ray of light that is like a white light, that is the convergence of everything. Oh, I just have to mute you, muting you. Convergence of everything, the center point of this here, the 0th dimension. This is when we get light from our star, the sun. It's white light, even though our light here is relatively yellowish green, but it is the recipe. That's what I'm trying to say. The rainbow, and why do I focus on the rainbow so much? The rainbow is the color recipe that makes up you. So we are made of light from our star. We are here in this mission accreting light. That means we are gathering it together. We're like sucking it, we're vacuuming it up, sucking up light. And so how do we suck up light? Through wonderful food. This is my wonderful organic morning juice. How else do we accrete light? Through sun gazing. And when I do sun gazing, I'm not staring at the sun with my physical retinas and my physical corneas, but I'm aligning my inner, apparatus, my inner aperture with the sun to be able to come inside of me. And eating light and accreting light also has to do with ingesting ideas. Light, like light that goes through a fiber optics cable, carries information. And so the flapping of my moving mouth parts here conveys information. And same thing with these paintings and with the sculpture that I'm always holding here. And I hold this up and I gesture with it, and I do a lot with visuals because I understand that this shape is speaking beyond the level of linguistics. And even if you just looked at it, even if you didn't speak English or you couldn't understand or hear my words, this would be having a profound impact on you and on your structure and on the behavior and the dance of your DNA. Okay, let's get into this. Your DNA is always dancing. How do you do the flying rainbow lasagna? The answer is you dance on a genetic level. If I say, let's say these are all the cells of your body, and we are like at a microscopic level, we're like that movie Fantastic Voyage, we are zoomed in on your little tiny cells, and I just drew all of your cells. This is your cell membrane that I just highlighted in blue, and these are your nuclear membranes, and these are all of your nuclei. And inside of all of your nuclei, there are vibrating strings that are your DNA, and it's actually in your nucleus most of the time unfurled, and it is called your chromatin. And most of the time, it's doing the prescribed dance patterns that society has taught you. How to be angry, how to develop disease, how to die. And I'm like, let's do a different dance. Let's do the dance where you get to rearrange your DNA and achieve your highest potential. And that is the flying rainbow lasagna. So now I'm going to draw in black on top of there. Imagine these little lasagna shapes being made out of your DNA. I don't know if you can see that, but I hope you can. I'm trying to draw inside on a genetic level that all of the nuclei of your cells begin to dance like flying rainbow lasagnas. And doing that is cultivating a feeling, and it is also an intention, and it is also a visualization. So when you use your inner movie screen to visualize this shape inside of you turning into this shape inside of you, that begins to make your DNA move in a new way. Just anything that you are thinking with your mind affects the dance patterns of your DNA. This is not unusual, and we're also understanding that DNA connects us from moment to moment. So as you are cultivating a new dance of your DNA, you are now cultivating greater freedom of movement through time. And what do I say all the time? These are for students of the class that have been here for a while. You're like a little ant walking across the surface of the leaf that is two-dimensional, and you are stuck to the surface of the leaf because you don't have the additional degree of freedom. But if you can jump off the surface of the leaf like a butterfly, then you can fly anywhere you want. You can fly and flit directly to the little flower at the end of my hand, or you can fold the fabric of space and time, and then you don't have to fly very far at all. But that is the idea of gaining an additional dimension, means gaining an additional degree of freedom. So if you transform your DNA into being able to do a new dance that is called the flying rainbow lasagna, it means you get to travel through time in a new way. And I also have said many times, like our creator of this physical vehicle, it would be insane if you created a car that didn't have a windshield. Here I'm putting down my pen. If you didn't have a windshield, it's like, I can't see where I'm going because there is something in front of me. It would be considered very dangerous. How about if you weren't allowed to actually touch the steering wheel of the car? Also very dangerous. So that's what it is. We do not have access to our higher faculties and our connection to the divine. That's like not being able to see and not being able to control the steering wheel. So flying rainbow lasagna, this is how you regain your higher faculties. And when we do that as individuals and as a species, this is turning from domesticated dogs into wolves. And imagine the profound change that happens on our planet when we do that. So just checking my time. It is a change in attitude and a change in behavior. So part of the change in attitude is, imagine if you're a very docile golden retriever dog that you're used to, like petting, and it sleeps at the end of your bed. What if that dog suddenly reverted to its wolfish format? And it was like, screw you, I don't need to sleep at the foot of your bed anymore. I'm going to go run around in the woods and eat a rabbit. And you don't get to walk me on a leash, and I get to do whatever I want to do and go wherever I want to go. Like, dogs have to follow their owner's commands. Well, when humanity becomes its undomesticated format, it doesn't have to listen to its master. It's, a higher dimensional master, the overlords, the occupiers of the interstices, the ones that made you domesticated, the ones that said you have to, first of all, you have to eat physical food. But if you're eating physical food, you are an agriculturalist with domesticated plants and animals, and that you have to use money. So you are understanding the levels of domestication. And that also goes down to predictability, that the beings that are hijacking human creativity also keep humans in a zombified or dumbed down format by having to go through rote, repetitive experiences every day. So a wolf every day in the woods is different. It's, or let me structure that sentence differently. To a wolf, every day that it lives in the woods is a different type of day. It is unpredictable. We don't know if it's going to be raining or sunny, or if there's going to be a deer to eat or a rabbit to eat, or if you're going to have to run away from something. And it means that that animal, it has to be more connected and more responsive to its environment. You have to be an expert. If you are a wild, undomesticated wolf running through the woods, you have to be an expert and be very athletic and use all of your senses, as opposed to that docile golden retriever dog that just has to sit there happily at its master's toe, and the master will give it all the food that it needs. All it needs to do in order to be healthy and alive is please its master. So that's humans in this time and place. Humans in this time and place, in order to stay healthy and alive, all they have to do is please their overlords of consciousness. So that would be, the Judeo-Christian God and the government as it is presently installed, and the present banking system. And if you do all of those things like a good dog, then you will be patted on the head and given your food. And what I am proposing here in this presentation and in being here on Earth for the past 16 years is a peaceful flying rainbow lasagna revolution, where each one of us turns into our undomesticated format. And that means that we no longer have to eat physical food. That's a big, huge part of it, because humans have impeded the natural behavior and expression of the genes of other organisms once humans had their own genetic expression impeded. So humans used to not have to eat food. This is the big one. If you are a vegan or a vegetarian and you're grappling with guilt, the idea that another being has to die or suffer or end their life so that you can chew them up and stick them in your belly and be alive, that is part of the primary trauma. Guilt at eating other things, guilt at eating other people. Death was invented. Once death was invented, like the capacity to occupy the interstices as opposed to just go back home to the central convergence point, then it was also invented for plants and animals. And that it then became this whole economy of death. And in order for us to feed our bodies and stay alive, something else had to die. And domesticated plants and animals also means that they do not get to choose their own procreative partners and be free. That's part of freedom. When I'm in my abstract galactic state, I wish to be perceiving the entire time field, experiencing freedom. That means you get to choose who you procreate with. Procreation is genetic intertwining. And I would also like to say and portray that we can change in this generation. Many people might think that all you can do is change your gametes, your sexual reproduction cells, and then pass those mutations or changes along to the next generation. But I'm here to tell you that that is not necessary, that you can indeed transform your DNA or your genetic dance in this generation, that each one of us, you don't just have to improve your cells and then pass that on, your characteristics, to the next generation, then you die off like a dinosaur. You actually get to be improved. Each one of us can dance like a flying rainbow lasagna and transform our structure and erase out the things we don't want and put in the things that we do want in this generation. And so, like I'm saying to you, Previous generations didn't have to deal with nanoparticles being sprayed in the atmosphere. This generation does have to deal with it. So at a certain point, it is necessary to throw out all the prescriptions and formalized dance movements that previous generations have created or expect you to do, and understand we're in a time of total innovation. We have to innovate like jazz musicians, because there's a lot of weird new things that are going on our planet. So I should get back into that. What is the exotic or non-terrestrial technology that is being deployed on our planet right now? Dark magic. This is the distortion of the time field. And the way that it happens is through rape and murder. And rape and murder, these are both distortions of DNA. So rape is combining together genetic, tendrils, twining them together involuntarily, against one's will. It's supposed to be that the procreation and the intertwining of genetic material is consensual, because it is based in the characteristics that the time field, the great composer, wants that music to be made. It wants note A plus note B to come together and make note C to make a beautiful chord. That's what it's like. If you fall in love, or two animals decide to procreate and mate, then that's making beautiful music. But rape is the opposite of that. Rape is when one note says, I'm going to be together with you, but I want to be together with this person, and then I want to make this baby. And that doesn't sound very nice at all. And so that is a very big problem. It is not consensual. And the actual physical beings that are made, and also the dance that humans are doing through time right now, because of that monochromatic, dumbed down, zombified state. Humans are domesticated, and they go through the same boring motions every day. They get up at the same time, and they brush their teeth in the same way, and they go to the same coffee shop, and they go to their same corporate cubicle job. And that's very different than me. I'm an artist. And even though I structure my own day, my day is not always the same. Some days I'm, painting a flying rainbow lasagna sculpture. And some days I'm, painting a painting. And some days I'm making a song. And sometimes I'm making a video. And I, as a undomesticated being, control and direct my own trajectory through time. This is the whole point. We're moving into this new era, this new chapter, where humanity no longer has externalized authority figures that say, you must do this at this time. Mommy or daddy, or the president, or the Pope, or Lord God Jehovah, or Jesus in the sky tells you what to do. And then you have to listen to them, because you are a good dog. Good dog. You did what someone else told you to do. And if you do something, if you say like, no, I'm going to be an artist. First of all, society will hate you. They'll be like, you're not going to have any money, and you're not going to be able to pay your heating bills and all that stuff. Like, you only get patted on the head when you do the things that your master wants. Like if you create a bunch of nuclear waste, you go work for a nuclear industry and create a bunch of plutonium waste. And then you will get patted on the head, and you will get your food, and you will get your dog bed where you're allowed to sleep. But society is not going to pat you on the head and encourage you for being a wild, undomesticated wolf. And so that is why, people that are creative and they follow their own inner creative mandates, like to make artwork or to make music or even to be a healer, because I really feel the healing arts are a part of artistry, that is part of being a wild, undomesticated human. And why I call this class Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. That is the whole idea. I don't know if you can see these figures back here. Let me pull up a picture of a full spectrum human. We are all full spectrum humans. We are not merely defined by the first 3 layers. I know I make squinty faces while I scroll. Bear with me here. Here's a good picture. We are meant to use these are our energy centers of our body. And this is all made of light. And we are meant to have access to these faculties. So these higher faculties right over here, that is what allows us to really be virtuosos of the time field, to be able to see through our windshield and be able to consciously hold on to the steering wheel of our vehicle and to create the experiences in life that we wish to create. So up until this point in history, humans have been defined as like, you're this daily waking intellect at the level of yellow. And of course you've got emotions down there at the level of orange. And then, coming up like at the base of your spine, I can't get my pen that far down, but that's the physical. You're a physical being with some emotions, and then a thin layer, like a thin coating of intellect on top of that. And that totally denies and devalues all of these other higher faculties that are unconditional love and the capacity to communicate and the capacity to have insight. Insight is unverbalized thought, and then the capacity to connect to something that is higher. So also let's get into that. This is insight. This is symbology. This is understanding beyond words. So there's all sorts of technology that is being used right now that is synthetic telepathy or voice to skull technology. There's a smart meter on the other side of that wall right over there that does this all the time. You're totally understanding that those are artificial, technological expressions of what should be done naturally and on a bridge of love. So before we had to use the language virus to communicate, we all had our higher faculties. I could, if we were living in these squashed genetic containers, I'd be able to just talk to you all about flying rainbow lasagna directly. I wouldn't need the iPad and the Zoom room and all of that. So also you can say, Aurora, why don't we just do this? Like, why don't we just do this right now? And the answer is because we're in transition. We got to get that bucket and mop up all of the challenges that we've got here on this planet right now. We have an extensive network of chaotic or uncontrolled EMF fields. And this is totally diminishing the natural connection to natural EMF fields, because it's like if we're trying to play this beautiful music that's like natural telepathy that is based on a bridge of love, and someone else is constantly doing this, and you're like, I'm trying to do my telepathy. I'm trying to do my telepathy. So, okay, enough of that. We got the idea. There are so many perturbations in the time field and actual pollution in our world, and none of it is by accident. Smart meters were not invented by accident. Let me just make sure I've got enough time left on the recording. 10 more minutes. This is, yes, exactly. Chemtrails and Wi-Fi. This is the planetary invasion, the bookend, all right? So back in ancient Atlantis, we lived in a beautiful, pristine world, and everything was done via telepathy, and we didn't need to use any technology, and we didn't need to eat food. We were horribly invaded, we were horribly raped and degraded, and death was invented, and we experienced it for the first time. And death really causes like a type of psychosis. I experienced it when my beloved cat died earlier this year. I was really not connected to reality for a little while, in the sense that you miss them so much and you want to do anything to bring them back. And that was the feeling of cataclysm after everybody got raped and traumatized and brought down into this level of density where we had to kill and eat other animals. There was that sense of profound loss of our previous state of being, all right? And what's happening right now is another invasion, and this is the exacerbation of the original invasion. It's the harvest time, and I'm making this motion now, if you can imagine, cutting down all of the plants that have grown up over the year, like over the season of growth. If you're like a farmer and you're growing giant fields of corn or wheat or whatever it is, you put a lot of energy into cultivating your domesticated plants. What have I been saying to you this whole episode? Humans are in the domesticated form. And you know something? When you have a golden retriever and you take care of it, you are taking care of that dog for your own personal convenience, not actually for the dog's convenience. If I have a golden retriever, I have it because I like to stroke its head and I like to snuggle it, or take it for walks. And originally humans domesticated dogs because dogs helped us to protect ourselves from other animals that had big sharp teeth, because humans don't have big sharp teeth. So that was an ineffective partnership. So think about this. You as a domesticated human are being cared for and nourished by these occupiers of the interstices at great expense. They give, look, I'm giving you a house. I'm paraphrasing in their mind. You live in a house. You don't have to run around in the woods. Look, electric light. Look, processed food. Look, pharmaceutical medicine and vaccines and all of that. You are so very lucky that I'm taking such good care of you. And then at the end of your life, you die, and I get to harvest you, and I get to use your energy and your consciousness that I have helped you to cultivate. I'm paraphrasing from the perspective of the occupier of the interstice. So that's all nonsense, not true, because those are hackers. The idea of hackers is that they didn't invent the system. They simply took the system and changed it and distorted it and applied it for their own convenience. That is what these occupiers of the interstices have done with the human genetic code. Let me just drink a bit of juice, and then I'll also tell you that technology is not inherently wrong or evil or anything like that, because DNA is itself a type of technology or artifice that was created in very, very, very ancient times by benevolent non-terrestrial beings as a way of organizing the cellular structure and energy and consciousness transference at this level of density. So I'm an artist, I make artwork, and art, the word art comes from artifice. This is artificial. If I paint a painting, where's my paintbrush? Here, if I paint a photorealistic picture of a flower, that's not evil. There's nothing wrong with that. But I recognize intellectually that if I put that flower in the sun, it's not going to grow. If I put dirt and water on it, it's not going to grow. It's an approximation. It's artifice, but it's not the actual thing. So in terms of making artifice, we can make something that conforms to the musical patterns of the cosmos, and that those are like the consciousness patterns that we are supposed to be running in or conforming to, the patterns of time and what we think and what we do and what we experience. So like I said, DNA is the integument that ties together moment to moment. It's like a mechanical contrivance that allows us to move through time. And there's nothing inherently wrong or evil about that. But if we are distorted and we have to always go into the interstices and experience death, and that is causing the distortion of the harmonic music of the time field, then that is not a cool thing at all. So all of this, because like I always characterize myself, I should do it in this recording also, I'm not a transhumanist, so I don't believe that you have to have any kind of microchips or fibers or anything, no magic elixirs implanted into you in order to achieve the highest level of potential or transcend the present limitations. And I'm also not a demonic apologist. I'm not apologizing for the beings that are the occupiers of the interstices. They are pure evil. They are malevolent. They only want to uphold their own empire and do the things that are convenient for them. And I give you all of this information about them so that you can have an understanding of their psychology, of where they come, like the backstory. You know, in all of these superhero movies, we always get the villain's backstory where we find out they're acting that way because of the things that happened to them. So it doesn't excuse or justify the violent or poor behavior. It does give us the necessary insight that we need to understand where does that behavior come from, and then how do we fix and heal things? Because I said to you earlier that just killing your enemies, killing your adversaries, this is not an effective approach or response. What do we actually do? What's the bucket and mop? How do you fix this up? Flying rainbow lasagna is how we fix this up. So this is also the most ethical approach you can take, because ethically, we are all in control or responsible for our own individuated forms. And yet, through understanding quantum observership, we understand that just observing the world affects the world. And we are creating the world with our mind and with our perception. So you gotta, at a certain point, raise the level of personal responsibility. I'm smiling because Annette says, we need an FRL dance party. That is exactly what I am here for. So I like to joke, I've been terraforming Earth to be a suitable habitation for me, you know, a rainbow with lasagna, for about the past 16 years. And it's very truthful. I emit this beautiful, you know, organized music of consciousness, and I'm affecting other people. And it's ethical because we're all affecting each other. Like the beings that play the horrible music are also affecting us. And I happen to have a very loud voice in terms of the genetic song that I'm making, that I'm sending out. So everybody can really hear, even if they don't take my videos, they can really hear this song, and I'm singing it in order to say, here's a new thing we can do. Here's a new thing we can do. We can have a new approach to life. And the dance party is integration, a harmonic integration of all of these different types of organisms and all of these different organisms throughout time. I'm just checking the time. 4 more minutes. So my body right now is being sustained by trillions of microbes. I'm friends with microbes. They live in my tummy, in my intestines. And guess what? Each one of us has about 3 to 5 trillion microbes that live in our intestines that we are in intimate partnership with, that make it possible for us to eat physical food and digest it. If you just put a bunch of physical food in your tummy and you didn't have those little microorganisms, it would be inert stuff. Your body wouldn't be able to absorb the nutrients out of that food because you wouldn't have the interface. So we have to create our beautiful harmonic music by integrating with the microbial realm, plants and animals on the macroscopic level, the entire planet herself, because the planet has her own metabolism, and even down to an atomic or molecular level, that we are integrating together all of these different levels. Ooh, let me grab my sculpture, hold on a second. So sorry about that. We are harmonically integrating all of these different levels of life experience, from the molecular or atomic to the microscopic, to the level of plants and animals, organisms that are on this level that we can recognize, and even to the level of the planet-wide circumstance. That this is the symphony. And let's also say it doesn't just involve life on this planet, because I also often characterize the antediluvian culture as a sophisticated galactic culture. It means we didn't just talk with other neighbors in our own solar system, we also spoke with neighbors, with far distant friends in different solar systems. And we didn't just speak with the occupiers of the planets in those star systems, but we also spoke with the stars themselves. So this is the idea that we can be connected on a vast scale to a much larger culture. And the preparation for doing that is becoming a sensitive enough musician to integrate with the other organisms that are on the planet. So here are some of the programmed in firewalls, or energetic firewalls, that the great creator, composer, conductor made. Basically, you have to figure out how to integrate with all of the organisms on your planet before you are ready to expand and integrate with organisms that are on other planets. Yes, exactly. And if you require technology to get off the surface of your planet, then clearly you are not prepared to make that journey, because we need to become energetically and socially sensitive to other forms of consciousness. So that, let's say there's some, I don't know if you can even hear that on the microphone, I'm playing this very high note over here. Let's say there's some organism that's like that, a very high note, a very delicate species that could totally be crushed. If we, with our when you get into a Clank Like Metal spaceship, your skin is teeming with microbes. It's all over you. If you go to another planet, what you are doing is infecting them with all of your yeasts and viruses and microbes and everything that you've got. And let's say that they're not immune, and then you kill them. That's not part of this larger structure. And that's also just a retread, just a repeat of the same things that we've done on this planet for the past 2,000 years that were so harmful and disruptive. When the Europeans used germ warfare when they invaded or explored North and South America, that because the Europeans had agriculture and domesticated animals, they were more immune to things like smallpox from cowpox. And when they met the people that lived in North and South America on that continent, those inhabitants had no resistance to smallpox from cowpox. So they got sick and they got killed. That's not something that we need to repeat on a galactic scale. So that is part of, we are healing the time field. We are healing our own inner genetic tendencies. And we are, like I just keep on saying, like we are using our pencil with an eraser in order to write the correct story. So, you know something, I'm at the end of what I can do for the recording. I've used my 1 gigabyte. So let me wrap things up in a good way. Because like I say, I will never give you all of these challenges without giving you the solution. So the solution is learning to dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, or vibrate your own genetic code into making a new form of music. And then your body will no longer be a place where these occupiers of the interstices can live and act through you and be expressed in human society. This is why I call this peaceful planetary revolution, bucket and mop, that we are using to clean everything up. And what we are doing here on this individuated planet is developing an antibody to this disease that has infected many other places. So that's why what we're under great duress. I give you hope and strength, because what we're doing here right now is creating the antidote that will be used to help many other people. Just like if you got the flu and you kicked it out of your body and you developed the antibody, you could then give that antibody to someone else, and then they could kick the flu out of their body. That's what we're doing on this planet right now. We are developing the antibody to the consciousness invasion that came here over 10,000 years ago, so that we can not only clear our own planet, but so that we can offer that as a template, as a solution that can be applied to other experiences in other places. So that's a good note for me to end on. Stopping the recording.